absentee ballot applications compared to last year and years. So, I think what's happened is that a sleeping giant is being awakened. And just to put in a plug for my generation, that people my age are coming out of the woodwork to campaign against issue one because they see this as a lifetime of their participation in terms of pro democracy, pro participation being taken away.
No doubt. David, you have had a couple of polls. I'm going to get into the 18 to 34-year-old, which is so important, the future of the Democratic Party, because of the third party threat. But you also have recently polled in Ohio, where Jerry is. I want to get your thoughts on what you've been able to understand in your polling. I know a lot have been about Sherrod Brown and, of course, the presidential race. But to me, Ohio, unlike Florida and unlike Texas, which in my opinion have gone the route of fascism almost. Ohio's a little temperate. DeWine isn't as radical as Abbott and Costello, or in this case, DeSantis. But I'm wondering what you found and how much the ultra MAGA right wing has taken a hold of the politics there. And I want Jerry's obvious, who lives there, to give us his thoughts too. David, what have you found?
Yeah, so in the poll that we did, and just to give you a little bit of background, there was a prior poll that polled on this state issue one, which is really an important vote, and it's going to have national implications, as is the abortion question on the Ohio ballot in November, was that it was an even kind of split. The last polling that we saw was a poll that basically had a third, support, oppose, and then our poll came back, and I shook my head. I'm not there, so I don't know. Jerry knows, but we have the no side at 57%, and the yes side is only at 26. So we're seeing a 30-point margin. And then when I looked at the crosstabs, everyone is supporting the no side. Obviously, Democrats 76% no, Independents 60% no, but even a plurality of Republicans, 41%, are saying no to this amendment changing sort of constitutional question on the ballot, and that's a powerful statement across parties, because usually in a state like Ohio, Republicans and Independents tend to tack in the same direction than Democrats do, except when it comes to people like Sherrod Brown, or specific issues or specific races. And you have the opposite here. You've got the Democratic numbers similar to the Independents, and it's even pulling some Republicans, as Jerry says, to the no side. So this really puts the state legislature, which is controlled by Republicans in Ohio, in a box. They're going to have to pivot or do something different. And again, I don't know the context of the early voting. I know that a lot of it was urban voters and suburban voters, but there's really no way to tell. But the kind of turnouts that we're seeing early seem to line up on the side of Democrats and Independents in Ohio, and less so for Republicans.
We're talking with both David Paleologos and Jerry Austin here on the Jeff Santos Show. Phone number to join us is 833-545-5333. Of course, you can email me, Jeff, with a J, revolutionboston.com. Post on Facebook and Twitter at Jeff Santos Show. We're going to go to the phones in a second and talk to Mark in San Francisco. But, Jerry, I just wanted to kind of, and again, Democrats got a lot of work to do in your state. We've talked about this, endlessly. But is the scenario here that Ohio and with the poll numbers that you were talking about and David was confirming, as a sign that the MAGA right wing is, at the very least, in a place like Ohio, not taking the stronghold as they are in places like Florida and the Deep South and in Texas? Is there a little bit of good news for people who are pro-democracy, who are Democrats, small d and big D?
My answer is yes, and no. Yes, when it comes to issue one, but David also pulled on the Senate race. And on the Senate race, Sherrod Brown is running for re-election. There are 3 Republicans running for their party's nomination. And none of these 3 are as known as Sherrod Brown, but the biggest margin he has on any of the 3 is 7 points. And, you know, Sherrod Brown should be much farther ahead. The 3 that are vying for the Republican nomination, I think David had them at 17, 15, and 14, so nobody knows who they are, which means to me that anybody with an R next to their name that's going to run against Sherrod Brown is going to make this an incredibly close race and could win.
That is scary, and you know it puts a lot of, you know, the wacko part of it is there, but Republicans are Republicans. Remember, George Bush lied us into the war in Iraq, and he and his vice president, you know, should have paid a penalty besides the election on that. In fact, they never did. In fact, you know, they went all the way to 2008 when Obama faced McCain. All right, with that, let's go to somebody who has been, you know, really concerned about the Democrats going on the offense. Our good friend Mark from San Francisco. You are next with Jerry Austin, David Paleologos here on the Jeff Santos Show. Welcome, my friend.
Yes, I've been doing a lot of thinking about the upcoming election in 24, and I think the Democrats should run against the Republican Party, the whole party, not just Trump. The whole party's got to be kicked out of office for giving us the garbage that they send us, with Trump, who's now a rapist, and a guy like George Santos. This is what we're getting in Washington. I mean, come on. We got to go after character of these Republicans. We got to go after the whole party. To me, you got to defeat them. Otherwise, they're threatening democracy. And if the young people want to vote third party and let it happen, then it's on them. But that's what we're facing. We got to take on the Republican Party.
Well said, Mark. I'll go with you first, Jerry. You know, this is something that, you know, we talk about, and sometimes Democrats just talk about Trump. But, you know, again, I just mentioned Bush. I mean, a lot of people think, you know, he's a saint comparison. But, you know, you look back 10 years of what happened in the Iraq War, you know, thousands of Iraqis who lost their lives, thousands of Americans lost their life, you know, and the economic disaster that was led to the recession in 2007, 8, and 9. I mean, this party should not be in charge of government anywhere in this country. They have proven to be a disaster in so many different places. You know, maybe there's an outlier in Maryland or Massachusetts in the past, but, you know, I live here in Massachusetts. Baker didn't do anything for our transportation system, our healthcare, and so forth. So there you go. Jerry, your thoughts, and then David.
Well, you know, I've said this many times before, that the best defense is an offense.
That's right.
The fact of the matter is that we, as I said before, we do have a Republican Party and we have the MAGAs. And we've got to get to the old style Republicans who, if I remember correctly, were our adversaries, our opponents, but never our enemies, to understand that their vote's important. You know, in Ohio, you know, in a couple of weeks to save democracy, but also in terms of, you know, defeating the Republicans that are either incumbents or in 2024 voting the right way on a redistricting ballot issue that'll be on that can change Ohio back to a purple state instead of a red state. But you know, part of the offense is to show what Biden has been doing as president, and his record is probably as good or comparable to and domestic stuff to FDR and to Johnson. But you know, I always question when he goes on the road to basically start talking about what he's accomplished, his preoccupation with South Carolina for some reason. And the last time I looked, and David could correct me if I'm wrong, but a Democrat has no chance of winning that in the general election.
David?
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. And Mark brings up and brings in an important piece of this, which is young voters. And in Ohio, young voters really are the only age demographic that Democrats can count on. Everything else was a
Hmm.
coin flip or Republicans winning. And in the 18 to 34 category in a Trump Biden matchup, Trump was only getting 30%. Well, that's the good news. The bad news is that Biden was only getting 43%, a 13-point edge for Biden. And 24% of young voters are, our support is on the table still. 12% said they would vote for an independent candidate, and 12% could not say who they were voting for. They were torn. So you look at those 24%, and if they disproportionately broke to Biden, things would be a lot different in the ballot test. In our ballot test, we had Trump winning by 6, with Cornel West getting 2. Overall, the Indy was getting 9, and the undecided was 6. But among young people, the Indy jumps to 12, and the undecided jumps to 12. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are saying, well, this is alarmist. This is, they will come back and they will end up voting Democratic. That's the pattern. And to that, I say, what pattern? Some of these people have never voted in a past presidential election.
Right.
There is no pattern. They're young kids. They're young people. So there is no pattern. I can't tell you what that 24%, what they're going to do. But, and I don't care how much micro-targeting and double crosstabs and everything that you do, there's no way to predict what they'll do. And so those who are advocating for a conversation about young voters, that's time well spent in this presidential election. And kudos to you, Jeff, for bringing it up in different forums with different guests, because it is the most important challenge.
If we can't do it, progressives can crow all they want about certain issues, but it's going to be the young people that are going to deliver those votes. I mean, David, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but if young people are more tolerant, in other words, understanding and very much focused on LGBTQ rights, very much against racism, and think that this is a major topic to discuss, then if you want to do things like expanding the Supreme Court, and they also are concerned about the healthcare industry in this country, and the fact that we don't have, like most democracies in the world, some kind of healthcare free Medicare for all, a type of a single payer system like we do in Canada and the UK with their HHS or health service. To me, this is an example. If you don't get those votes to come out, you can forget about any of these issues. I mean, Bernie was successful to a certain extent, but the pandemic and a lot of other things, threw a lot of his ideas out the window. But to me, this is really critical, and we're trying to do here on the show, and with the help of a lot of our friends, including both of you, to try to understand that we need to get young people to be listened to, and to be taking their ideas on some of these issues that are relevant to the rest of the generation, the rest of the demographics up to 90 years old, that these things got to be dealt with. And if you don't, and you just sit back and take it, as Mark is telling us, Democrats are going to lose. It's not that hard to figure out. It's a numbers game, right, Jerry?
Well, it's a numbers game, but there's also another, not an issue, but tactic that I've used in the past, and I don't mean just me, but you may remember, not remember, in 1971, there was a move to get 18-year-olds to vote, and here in Ohio, what we did is we organized 17-year-olds who were becoming 18 to go after their brethren, and so peer to peer. And today, as we're speaking right now, there are 17-year-olds becoming 18, and be able to get those young people first to register and then to vote. We need to have young people involved in registering young people, and the best place to do that is in their schools during the school year.
Very, very much an issue that I think people need to focus on is getting to people who are 18. There are some folks, I've been one of them. I think Massachusetts has some kind of legislation that is educating 16-year-olds to vote. And they would, I think it'd be a great idea to educate 16-year-olds. And of course, I think Republicans want to raise it to 25, from what I understand, as well. All right, let's open up the phones once again. And we're going to go back to John in Minneapolis and then Tom in LA. John, you're next with David Paleologos and Jerry Austin. Go right ahead.
I think that the DCCC, the leadership of the party, could really care less if we lose. They're all good. They have their solid upper middle class positions or wealthier, and the heck with them. Because the young people, they want change and they want it now, and I don't blame them, and they're not listened to, and the leadership of the party are arranging things so that they're not listened to. And unfortunately, we're stuck with a two-party system. I mean, we can't make a coalition like, Tommy Douglas, he made a coalition talking about healthcare just north of here in Canada. Right? He from a prairie party that was insignificant, making a coalition with another party, and they literally changed the whole very conservative, I would say, position of Canadian society. It really was a seed change. And we could do that, FDR did that, but of course things were so absolutely desperate, 40, 50% unemployment, people were starving, the Dust Bowl, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it was just awful. So that really changed a lot of very conservatives to support him, and we don't
well, there
have
are things that
right
are pretty
now.
bad right now, John.
Things aren't.
And I think there are people in Washington.
Well, there are
there, that are good people who want to see things done. There are a lot of people though who have done pretty well in life, and they don't want to see the status quo change because they're making a lot of money. But that's why you got to get new leadership, and you got to get young people to run for office to make sure that they are the future. Because we don't need more Joe Manchins, that's for sure.
Yep.
David, let me ask you this, because a lot of folks that I talked to on the show, and there are organizations out there like Run for Something and Contest Every Race, are really focused on getting young people to vote. Jerry and I have had this discussion many times, you and I too. And I think that's going to be another piece of this, because young people want to be heard. And I think it's incumbent that they are running. I mean, I can only think of two Democrats that are under the age of 35. That's AOC and our good friends, and we almost got time to go here. I'll give you 30 seconds, David, on that issue. Not a lot of members of Congress under 30.
Yeah, so, who's going to make that appeal? Joe Biden, a guy, who they look at and they say, that's my great-grandfather, or that's my grandfather. I mean, I think you've got the message. The issues are winning issues. It's just connecting people who are like them.
That's right.
We don't have anybody speaking to them who are like them. And that's why you've got 12% Ohio saying third party, 12% undecided.
People of color, economic similarities, education similarities, all that. Jerry and David, we wish we had the hour to talk about it because it's great stuff. Really appreciate it. I want to thank Josh for producing this broadcast. Our great friends in Boca. Keep on fighting, folks, peacefully. Until next Thursday, my name is Jeff Santos, and right now it is my time to say I gotta go.